go through a couple of things with you. Right, let me grab mine. I think I'm going to jump in real quick because Tony made a really good point about where your data lives. And the biggest problem for schools is, where does your data live? Where does it reside? And it was a great point that Chris put up there about transcription. Transcription is a fantastic tool. However, where is that info going? Especially in board minutes, if you're having a conversation between a head of faculty and a teacher, or a teacher and a student, really, really important to know where kind of all that stuff goes. So, the good news is that we have a really simple terms of service around data. So everything that you do inside a school account stays inside the school account. So it stays inside the school domain. We talk about Google for Education as the idea of a walled garden. So there's a wall around your school account. So you can obviously share stuff outside of it, but you have to physically do that. Same thing with what you're doing inside of generative AI with your school account. Okay, if you're using a Gmail account, very, very different. But if you're using the school account, everything stays inside that wall. Okay, so we can kind of talk about this a lot, but that bottom point there, this bit about making your data private and secure is a super, super important point for schools. So we're going to have a look at a couple of things. We're going to have a look at kind of on the left-hand side, we have Gemini. So Gemini is our model. It is also the name of our tool. And there are two different flavors of Gemini, if you like. There is a free one and there is a paid one. Both of them have full data protection on them when using your school account. The other amazing tool that we often talk about is Notebook LM, and I'll give you a real quick run over that because it's an amazing tool for people who deal with lots of documents, lots of resources, lots of information. We won't look at the Gemini and classroom stuff because we'll leave that for the teaching stuff. So we do have these two important points. Everything is private, everything is secure, everything is owned by you, no ads, nothing gets sold to advertisers, all that sort of good stuff that you need to know about. Now, we have a couple of these free of charge tools, and Gemini, the free version of Gemini, we look at, uses a couple of the latest models. There is something inside of Gemini called a gem. Now, you may be familiar with things called GPTs, which are custom built agents. Inside of Gemini, they're called a gem. Now, what a gem is something where you can pre-train it, you give it all its instructions, and then you set it off to do something. Now, with principals, I've been talking about things like writing your principal's speech, writing your newsletter, creating a list of this sort of stuff. So you tell it what to do, you give it your school values, for instance, you give it your school history, you might give it something from the New Zealand curriculum, like the core competencies, pre-train it all, and then go, write me a 5-minute long speech, write me a newsletter article talking about these two things. So that's what we can do with gems, okay? They live inside of Gemini. Deep Research is a really, really cool tool as well. And Deep Research is your research assistant. So what you can do is you can say, find me examples of an AI policy at a primary school across the OECD. And it'll go and do all this research and bring you back and write you a report. So the example you've got down the bottom there is analyze best practices for developing new policies or evaluating the effectiveness of existing ones. So Deep Research is your research assistant. One I did with it recently was looking around this idea of a knowledge-rich curriculum. I jumped into Deep Research and said, can you find me examples of what a knowledge-rich curriculum is? What countries use it? What are the advantages of it? And what are the disadvantages of it? And it went away and did a whole lot of research and wrote me this big report. So Deep Research lives inside of Gemini as well. And I'll show you where to find that. There are a bunch of things built into Gemini as well, and audio overviews are one of those. And what it'll actually do is turn your information into a podcast. And so basically you get all the info, turns into a podcast. Really useful for things like board reports or meetings, meeting minutes. It will actually turn those into a conversation between two, what we call hosts. And I'll show you what that looks like as well. We'll jump over this one as well. Believe this. Now, there are some schools out there who are going 100% Gemini with all their teachers and all their students. So Gemini is so safe, it's now available for every student from year 0 right the way up to year 13. So that's another nice little thing to understand about that. We have a whole lot of industry certifications. And what I'll do is, Tony, are you okay to take over again? I've kind of done the background of things we're looking at before we dive into a couple more tools.
Yeah, totally. I'm so sorry about that, everyone, and hopefully this will work this time. I think it's because I'm in a hotel room and maybe it's being a bit funny, but let me try one more time.
One more go. I will stop sharing and I'll let you jump in.
Awesome.
Let's try that. Kerry, yes, we can. Gemini is actually taking notes for us right now. So you'll get the meeting notes for this done by Gemini in the background, and you'll get all the little meeting notes for us. So if you look up in the top right-hand side of the screen, there's a little Gemini star, and there's a pencil beside it. I've turned that on and said, can you take notes for us? Whoa, look at that, Tony.
That's pretty cool, eh? Is that better? Can you see that?
Yes, we can.
Okay, cool. Right, so thank you, and tell me if I'm going wrong, because I do actually like to navigate between things. So, Steve, I'm sure you've covered off a few things, so we'll move through. Look, I'll get going on here. That's New Era. We're us. If you want to talk about stuff, come talk to us. What I want to go over is one of the things that I've been coming up against, not the challenges, but is people knowing where to start. And so I want to have a bit of fun. And I think that that's one of the things that you can really do when it comes to AI in general, is to have a bit of fun for a start. And I call that low stakes or kind of low investment model for a start. You'll see here, there's obviously, there's a bit of a quiz on here. One of these is not AI generated, one of those photos. No, I'm joking. They're all AI generated. I don't ever look that good or have a fishing line coming out the top of my head. But it is a place to start to have a little bit of fun. So I also want to go over some practical use stuff, and I know Steve will go into that in a bit more detail. But certainly, having worked in education for some time, there's certainly some use case scenarios that I'd like to highlight for you as well. Some be carefuls. I think I heard Steve talk at the end about working inside the tenant of Google. So we'll just briefly touch on that and some next kind of steps. For those of you who haven't seen this before, I'm gonna show you really, really quickly. Hopefully this isn't gonna get too, whoa, that's really weird, but that's okay. We're gonna go to Gamma. Do somebody let me know, allow on every visit, cool. Okay, so I'm gonna show you something on here, and there is method to my madness here with what it is that I'm gonna show you. This is a little prompt I put together earlier. It's just a simple one line. Let's just make this go way down here. Let's create new from AI. Let's just generate it. Let's do a presentation. We don't need that many cards. Let's not get silly about it. I'll paste in my prompt here. There is method in my madness about why I'm showing you this. And you'll see right now, hopefully, because I haven't done this, this is literally live. It's putting together a presentation for me. Now, inside, obviously, Google, there are presentation tools that exist as well. But the reason I'm showing you this one is this is actually a paid tool. Right, this is something called Gamma. I think I pay $10 a month for it. And the reason I illustrate this is twofold. One is, one of the great things about these AI capabilities is the ability to do some of the backbone work for you. So getting things together and information, but it allows you to spend more time qualifying that information rather than necessarily producing all of it. And that's a really big deal for people who obviously, like yourselves, who are very, very busy. So what I'm going to get it to do now is I'm going to get it to generate the presentation itself. So this is a paid tool, but in reality, I don't really know Gamma that well. So I'm not going to put anything in here that I think is identifiable or anything that could be of risk, because obviously most of you will be aware of the Privacy Act of 2020, which says that anything identifiable in terms of any organisation is notifiable, and there's quite a very unpleasant process to kind of go through. But you'll see here it's searching the web and it's getting bits and pieces of information and putting this presentation together for me. There's three ways, ultimately, that you pay for AI. One is that you can pay for it like this, and it gives me a certain amount of tokens, and I can use those tokens to make things. The other way is you have a paid subscription. Now, I'm sure maybe Steve touched on this, but as part of your ministry licensing, you actually have a paid version which works on the web. So, for instance, over here, if I click on this, this is your version up here will be a paid version, and the way to check for that is you sort of click up into the top here, and you should be able to see your school email address, and that's really important that you see that school email address. If you're just using your Gmail, that's not really in that tenanted environment. Think of your fence around your school where everything's kind of kept in it in that regard. So that's super, super important. The other way you pay for AI is your data. Nothing is free. I'm going to be really, really clear about that. If you're not paying for it, it's like Instagram, it's like Facebook and other things like that. At the end of the day, your data and your information is essentially the payment. And yes, there may be some guarantees around sort of saying, okay, well, we're only going to use it for training purposes. But the reality is, this is a great place to start. Inside your Gemini, logged in under your school account is a brilliant place to be. So Gamma, great place to be. There's also crazy, funny little things like this. Marriage simulators, if you haven't been into a few games like this before. I am late because I found cat. And you can have a little bit of fun in here. Are you a husband or wife? Oh, let's just go husband. And I can start having, and I'm going to, by the way, I'm going to do this on purpose. I'm going to spell things wrong. And I'm going to be terrible at typing because this is how clever AI is with this stuff. Don't let it get in the way of you being able to give a go. I mean, my lovely 82-year-old dad, when he was first playing with this, was far too nice to it, you know, using lots of pleases and thank yous and wanted to get all of his grammar correct. But the reality is you don't have to. So this is a great way if you want to have an argument with your spouse before you get home and get it out of the way. You can have a little bit of fun with that. The other cool thing is there's image generation. If you haven't done that before, it's really, really powerful. There's cool things like, for instance, recently I went and took a picture, and this was using Google Gemini of a jigsaw puzzle at Op Shop, and got it to check the number of pieces that were in it, and then I got it to direct me to some of the edge pieces because it was a circle and it was really hard. I also got it to take a picture of a shelf in an op shop and told it to if there's anything there that may be of value, which is pretty amazing. And I've also seen the Google Gemini also be able to describe things in real time when you ask it of what it's looking at. I may have found some flash pans for people who are into cooking, and I may have transformed my dog into James Bond. So again, the reason I illustrate this is to say there's fun things you can do. I had a lovely EA come and tell me that actually, no, it was a school business manager come and tell me that they used Gemini to write a poem to their support staff about looking after yourself in winter, and had a really nice time around that, and it was a way to do something different. Very, very low stakes. Nobody's, you're not putting in school email addresses or people's names and addresses and things like that. So cool, fun place to start is to have a little bit of fun. Where we really start to get into it is with these low-risk entry points with what it is you do in your day-to-day work. We know that things like drafting communications and administrative correspondence, it can really, really help. Again, we want to keep the human in this as well, and it is not about doing it perfectly for you every single time, but it's about being able to provide some of that sort of back, the back-end work of coming up with stuff. Sometimes we don't feel as inspired, and we can kind of, put in our ideas around things and getting it to do stuff. Proofreading and quality checks is really, really good as well. Remember, you don't have to have it do it for you. You can actually get it to provide you a table of summary of the things that it would like to change, and you can go and change them yourself rather than just get it rewritten over and over again. Quality checks, check it for your audience. We had a great example where the senior leadership team were working on rewriting policies for people with English as a second language. And so it took the policies and said, keep everything the same, but put it in plainer language so that people as English as a second language may be able to understand this a bit better. Steve may go over this, but some of the scheduling and reminder tasks inside Gemini and the Google tenant are just phenomenal, and it just seems to be getting better and better and smarter. So some of those low risk entry points are a really good place to start. Before we did this talk, of course, people were talking about meeting notes. Another great place to start, whether you're using that recorder inside a Chromebook, or whether you're using Google Meet with the AI services in the back of it, a great place to start to take away some of that thing. And you're spending your time qualifying the information, not necessarily producing it. The other bit too is finance and procurement. Some of you will be required to put together things like budgets and spreadsheets, or even organizing things in events. This is a great way of being able to do it. Now, I'm not sure, sorry, thanks to my technical uselessness or the internet here, Steve may have described it about the next version of Gemini, which is this ability to be able to use things inside applications, inside your mail, inside sheets. And that is just so powerful, because what it's doing is it's making a series of connections across things that are available to you, and directly within it, rather than having to go to a kind of a chat back and forth inside that kind of Gemini console. And that is hugely powerful. I always describe the example of a PA who was asked by the principal to put together a timeline of an issue they were having with a building to do with the Ministry of Education. And of course, there was correspondence in mail, there was correspondence in letter form, there was a whole lot of things that were kind of going on around that. But what was amazing was it was able to search across and start building some of that information out, which, as you all know, is incredibly time consuming. Calendar and meeting management, talked about that a little bit before, won't go through that too much. May leave that to Steve, and we talked about it a little bit at the very start. But being able to manage those calendars and being able to manage those meetings, very, very smart tool to be able to do that. If you are screening things, like often you'll have to screen CVs and recruitment, you can actually do some pretty cool tricks around this. You can actually upload resumes, you can upload a job description, and you can start building out a matrix in order to evaluate those resumes. Now, one of the things I will say about this that's really important is that you will get a really quite a nice result. It may rank 5 people from top to bottom around what they are based upon the job description. Be aware though, the more that you provide feedback on Gemini or any of the AI engines, the better the results are going to be. For instance, if you provide a job description and you put in some resumes, it's going to make assumptions around what are the desirable qualities within it. Now, you may have a focus on customer service, or you may have a focus on technological skills, or whatever else it is. And it will also make assumptions around things like qualifications. It may say, because you've been there or you've had this qualification. So you do get an assumption that it makes, and you do get some bias around that. So it's really important, again, to spend your time qualifying that information and re-instructing the AI engine to be able to go, hey, actually, this didn't make sense. I want you to reevaluate it based on this, because it is an entirely different way of working, rather than, when I grew up, there was the encyclopedias in the corner under the TV, and then we all went to Wikipedia and copy and pasted it out, and that was what it was. This is far more back and forth and being able to qualify that information. It's not a single transactional thing. It's an ongoing conversation and development. So those are the kinds of things, and thinking laterally. I call this washing the dog, because if there were 20 dogs in front of 20 people and you said go wash the dog, you would get 20 different results. You would get the person who had it basically just sprayed it with water, and then you would get the person who had it dressed up like some weird thing with a scarf on and stuff and bits and pieces. So the key is, when you're crafting your prompts, when you're communicating with your AI, is to be as specific as you can. Like 1 line or 2 lines, you're going to get a pretty generic result. And remember, all of the AI engines are there to kind of keep you happy. They kind of want to give you an answer that you're happy with. But the more specific you can be, the better the result is going to be. When we teach kids, we say, go and write a story. Well, you're not really helping define it, and it's such a big thing. You're gonna get a very, very generic response. So the more specific you can be, the better. Asking it, what else do you need to know? Asking Gemini and saying, what else do you need to know in order to give me this a good answer? And it will actually come back and ask you more questions about things that you may need to qualify, and that really, really, really helps getting a really good answer. Imagine you are put Gemini in your shoes. Say, I am a PA working at a school. I'm trying to put together a program of events for a prize giving. I want to, etc. What else do you need to know? All of those sorts of questions. Get it to imagine you are. I did this really naughty thing the other day when I was trying to find a senior engineer, a systems engineer, about replacing some server stuff, and I couldn't find one. So just for a giggle, I put in, this is what it is. Pretend you're a senior engineer. What would your recommendations be? And of course, there were things that weren't quite right, but I did give them a bit of a hard time, saying, well, I don't know how long you're going to be around for, but no, just had a bit of fun with it. So putting it in your shoes, clearly stating the purpose and the expected outcome. Otherwise, you're going to get different results around, again, what it's going to assume, what it is that you want. So I want a list. I want bullet points. I recently updated a policy for a school in Australia based upon changes in their Privacy Act, or one of the subsections that they had in there. And I didn't want it to change the document. I wanted it to give me a series of recommendations and give me specific links in order to say why it's justified that stuff. Why are you doing this? I'm doing this because I'm reviewing a such and such. I'm trying to design I need ideas on it, and I would like it like this. So being really clear about the purpose and the outcome. Correcting the outcome. I think I kind of touched on that earlier. The more you correct any AI model, the better. It needs it. It needs to be refined. It needs to be pulled up on things that you don't like. For twofold. One is that is how it kind of learns what you want and how you want things. And the other one is it starts to refine what it is that it gives you. And that's really important, because otherwise it will try and plagiate. One of the fun ones, if you get stuck, is prompt as a prompt. Say, I'm trying to design a prompt in order to put together such and such and such and such, but I don't know the best prompt to write. Could you give me a prompt that I can then paste back in to use as a prompt? And the results are spectacular, to be honest. It's hilarious. So again, just a few tips around when you're prompting and you're working and communicating with Gemini. I won't go too much into Google Gems. I think it's a really cool space. I've had some really fun bits and pieces to do with this. And for those of you who've heard about things like AI agents, this is kind of what we're talking about. Think about a kitchen with all of its appliances. Think about all the bits and pieces that do. Think of a gem or an agent as an appliance that does something really specific that you want it to do. It doesn't do other things, but the best thing about it is it will do exactly what you want it to do, given the information that you give it, rather than necessarily search out on the web or make a bunch of assumptions. Case use and examples around this are things like RAS forms, so risk assessment stuff, where you can put in your templates you've already got and start teaching it the questions to ask, and it will produce those forms for you and produce the communications for you. So very, very cool. Memory persistence, I won't go too much into this. Google has done some amazing stuff with this lately. Essentially, this is for one of the challenges with AI, of course, is the amount of power and computing power that is used. And one of the things that you want when you're building up something like a gem, or you're trying to build up a specific function, is you want it to remember stuff. Like, you want it to remember that information that's been put in there before. But of course, that doesn't always necessarily happen, which is memory persistence. But again, I've got to, kudos to Google. They've done some amazing work in that lately, and I think that that's going to be a bit of a game changer. I'm just going to touch on a couple more things before I hand back to Steve. The first one is, and I'm sure he said this again, work in the tenant. Work inside your Google tenant of your school. So if I go back to here, though, one of the big mistakes that people make, and here I am working in my New Era tenant in my in Gemini, which is great because I know that my information is just going to sit in there. Be aware that even if you're in the same browsing session, and I go to a new, I go to some other AI tool, if it's not one of the Google AI tools, then you're actually not in your tenant anymore. So if I go over here and I go and sign into something else AI-wise, I'm not necessarily, I'm not, unless I'm using a tool that is established within that Google tenant, I'm not in it anymore. And so just because you're in the same browsing session doesn't mean you're in the same, doesn't mean that you're in Google Gemini and inside your tenant. Which reminds me, I think I forgot, I'll put it down here. One of the things I will just add in here while I'm doing it is email. Be aware that when you use your school email to sign up to something, let's just say that you go and sign up to some AI tool. That email and that password that you put in there, and let's face it, a lot of people keep the same passwords. If that database gets breached, whoever is running it, they have the potential then for your email and password to be out on the web. So one of the things I encourage people to do is to just check in with your senior leadership team, or check in with your IT people and say, hey, look, is this looking okay for me to be able to use? And I kind of want to use it for just doing X, Y, and Z, nothing too particularly dangerous or anything like that. And they may say, absolutely, that's totally and utterly fine. But just be aware that that email is very much part of a commodity if it were to get out. Again, just want to reiterate that nothing is free. If you're signing up for something that is free, your data and information, there are no guarantees, which is why working inside that Google tenant is such a great place to start. And I'm talking about ring fencing here. So ring fencing is one of those things that if you go to a hotel, for instance, they give you a key card. That key card should get you into your room. It should get you into the doors after hours, and should get you into the gym and places like that. It's really important before you start pushing out too many of the next level Google AI Pro and things like that, that you've had a check on who's got access to where. Because again, AI is not sentient. If you ask it a question and it has access to somewhere, then it will go and look. And there have been instances, certainly not with Google, but overseas, where this has been rolled out. They've put a new employee into the wrong distribution group, and they've typed in, what is the CEO's salary? And it doesn't know any different. It had access to that place and came back with an answer, which obviously is not what you're wanting to be doing. So again, getting the IT to check that people are in the right groups and things like that is a really important part of when you're rolling this stuff out. Finally, from me, I just really want to say is that it can feel really overwhelming. I'm old enough and grey enough to have been through a number of technological shifts in time. It can feel like you need to do everything and understand everything. You really don't. Start with a little bit of fun. Start with a substitutive task like taking meeting notes or getting it to rewrite an email or something like that. So don't get overwhelmed. Start small, but do start. because this is absolutely happening 100%, and it is moving forward. But you don't need to know everything all at once, and that's why I'd say keep the conversation going. The best way I've seen this work within the school environments is where people are talking about how they're using it and the challenges that they're having, but also the successes that they're having, which are a lot, and inviting that feedback and questions around how things are working and what's okay and what's not. And I know people, amazing people like Steve and our team at New Era are here to help answer some of those questions and support you along the way with that stuff. So hopefully that's just a bit of a general overview. And then what I'll do is I'll pass back over to Steve to get into some of those specific tools around Gemini.
Well, thanks very much, Ben. I will jump in and share my screen and show you what I've been doing my hard research on at the moment around AI tools.
No.
Now, I quite like the bottom left one because it looks like Tony and I might be brothers or hanging out a little bit. So this is a little app I built with something called AI Studio that just turned it into a photo booth for me. So there you go. That's what I call doing research. Look, I think I know Tony makes a lot of really, really good points. And, thinking about what's something that's a really low entry point or something to have a play with, creating images inside of Gemini is one to start with. So I just said, can you make an image for the metaphor that Google for Education is like working inside a walled garden? It may be that one. And I went, that's not particularly what I wanted. So I iterated on, just said, hey, can you make the image looking from above? There we go. Well, there's no school in there, so put a big school inside the wall. There we go. So there's my metaphor effectively built for me. Now, the really nice piece about that is that no one owns that image. It's 100% copyright free. So if you need to create an image for newsletters, for publications, for whatever, just jump into Gemini and make it. So I'm at the point now where I'm talking to people, why go out and spend hours searching for something or buying something? Just make it. So you notice in here, there's a couple of things. There is a little AI watermark down in the bottom corner there. We are now watermarking with that watermark, but also stuff inside the image. There's actually now a built-in watermark inside that image. But the other thing, and it was a really important point Tony made, was when I have a look at my prompt, I have that little lock on it. That's because I'm using my school account. That means that everything that goes in here goes nowhere. It stays inside that walled garden, okay? And I've got my school account up here, which is very different than my Gmail account. And my Gmail account, I put dumb things in there like, can you make me a picture of a panda juggling plates? Whereas in my school account, I'm going to do my school-based stuff, okay? Tony made a really good point about the prompt being super, super important. Now, this one is a very long prompt. This is one I pinched from somewhere, and what it then did was actually make me a video from that prompt. So 8-second video, and you get that when you have the paid version of Gemini. Now, video creation is very expensive, and it does take a lot of compute, and Tony did touch on that point. Yes, this stuff takes a lot of compute. That's the reason why you kind of have some things that are free or free for a little bit. So that's just a couple of little things that we can look at. Now, I left off talking before about one of the first tools I want to jump into is something called Notebook LM. And Notebook LM is available for you to use right now. So it's at notebooklm.google.com. And why this is really, really useful is you tell Notebook LM what you want to put into its corpus of knowledge. You build its little receptacle of knowledge, and that's all it's going to look at. In the center here, you can ask it some questions, and on the right-hand side, it can make you some things. Now, how it works is that it will bring some information into it, and it will then do some things for you. Now, it's only going to look at what you give it. And exactly like Gemini, it is controlled by your school account. Whatever you put into it goes nowhere. So we have this idea that it actually becomes an expert for you. Now, what it will also do is it will create your little video overview or a podcast. And this is the bit that is super, super interesting. So what I'll do is I'm actually going to jump over to one of my notebooks. So this is what a notebook looks like. On the left-hand side, I've got a job description for a teacher. I've got a website about the professional growth cycle. I've got my appraisal document or my job appraisal document. I've also got a transcript of a conversation I've had with my manager. In the middle here, I can ask questions. And it's only going to look at the things down the left-hand side here. Okay, it's not going to go to the internet. It's only purely going to look in there. So you could put a policy document in there. You could put your school's strategic plan in there. I've got an example here of 3 years of board reports that you can put in there. So you can put a whole lot of info in here, and it would then over in this right-hand side here, it will make you a whole lot of information. So that's what Notebook looks like. If I jump back to one more over here, I'll show you that school board example. So here are my 3 years of school board reports for Bayside High School. Fictional school that Gemini wrote for me, so I'm not actually leaking anyone's documents here. We're all good. And I asked it a question over here. I said, can you tell me about staff morale over the 3 years? And what it's done is it's gone through the 3 years of reports and given me feedback on staff morale. 2023 things went a little bit wobbly. There was a few significant impact on reports, physical altercation between two staff members at the school at the Christmas party. So that's looking at my board reports and giving me some information. The other thing it will do is it will actually create you a mind map of those resources as well. So if I want to understand it better, I can hit mind map and it's actually going to jump in here and create me a mind map. Now for people who are working with a lot of data or a lot of big reports or a lot of long articles, you can drop them in here and ask questions about it. So I've got one down here, which is a 190-page PDF with a whole bunch of recommendations that you can go through and ask questions. So Notebook LM is an amazing little tool. You put stuff into it, it stays inside it, and it only looks at that stuff when you're using it. It's been one of those tools that has been super, super exciting because it does help people really get into understanding lots of big information. Now, I'm going to jump forward a bit and start to have a look at this idea of what does built-in Gemini look like. So to be clear, this bit here is actually a paid product, okay? But when this, and when this first came out, I was like, man, that's quite expensive. But now looking at the time savings that are actually available in it, it's really worth the investment in it. So what we'll do, we're going to have a look at this across 3 surfaces, if you like. What we call is Gemini and Workspace. There's the Gemini app that you've seen, and there's Notebook LM you've just seen. Now, when you pay for a Gemini license, you actually get vastly expanded capabilities inside of Notebook LM you just saw there. So inside of Notebook LM, when you have a paid license, you actually put 300 resources in there. And those resources can be PDFs, websites, YouTube clips, reports, or just copied text. You could put the transcript of your recorded meetings in there as well. So it can all go in there. Workspace Gemini inside of Workspace sits inside, as Tony was saying. So it sits inside your Gmail to help you write, or inside your docs. It sits inside your slides to help you create things. It helps you organize inside of Sheets or Drive. Inside of Meet, like we're doing right now, it will transcribe and take notes for us. And it will also help you to create inside something called Google Vids, which is a video creation tool. Now, what you get inside of this solution is that what you can see there, that right-hand side sidebar. So this is Gemini sitting inside your Drive. I'm just returning from vacation. Catch me up on all the things I've missed. What are new documents in my Drive? Or have a look inside the weekly staff meeting minutes. What's new? What are the action items that are inside there? Gemini will jump in, have a look at it, give you some feedback. Okay? So this one is Gemini sitting inside, as opposed to Gemini sitting outside. Inside a Google Doc, you get Gemini sitting inside that doc. So you could go, make me a staff meeting with bullet points on this, this, and this, and have a look at my calendar and see what's coming up, and add that into the doc as well. So Gemini Inside actually looks at all your different things. Now, this is the one that's a real benefit for people who are managing email. So this one here is an example of saying, can you catch me up on what happened in this email chain, summarize it for me, find the action items, and reply to everyone and tell them I'll get back to it by the end of the day. And it will do that for you. Now, a lot of principals and principals assistants will come back to their desk, sit down, and there's that email chain with 20 replies in it. And you're like, oh my goodness, here we go. Just ask Gemini to summarize it for you. You can also say, if there are any action items, add it to my task list, and it will automatically flick it over there as well. Now, let's jump forward a little bit. We don't want to do this one. Now, Google Forms as well. There is a built-in feature inside of Google Forms where you can say, make me a form that does this. And Gemini will write that form for you. So you might say, I want you to write me a form, giving me feedback on last night's staff meeting. What was the place like? What was the food like? What was the content covered? Make that form, send it to everyone. So you don't go through making all those questions. Now, as Tony said also, this is always seen as a draft. This is your draft form. You would go through and put your own spin on it or your own touch on it. But this is an example of using that built-in Gemini to write a quiz on physics. So it basically says to you, what do you want to make? And it will go and help you make all those things. Gemini inside of Sheets is probably my best friend at the moment because I have zero understanding of how formulas work. So what I can do is I can jump into a sheet and say, can you compare column J to H? Or what is the comparison between this and this? Or can you look down column A, B, and D and find which ones are common to all of them? And Gemini go, here's the formula, and I go, thank you, drop it in, and it does the stuff. I have zero clue what it means. It's like when I take my car to the mechanic and go, it's making like a clank, clank sound, and the mechanic, she'll go, it's this, and all I hear is noise. And I go, cool, can you just do it? Same thing with this inside of Sheets. I want to do this, this, and this. Can you do it for me? Gemini's like, yep, here we go. So Gemini inside of Sheets. Now you notice here there are a couple of new updates. So Gemini will create you graphs and charts out of that sheet as well. So make me a graph of this column, and this column. It'll just do it. Then you have to kind of grab them, drop them into a new sheet, group them all together, and it'll make the most common one for that data. Comparing, summarizing, all that sort of stuff as well. This is what we're talking about inside of Google Meet. Google Meet has a couple of really nice Gemini abilities. One of them is live translations. So if you're having a Meet call with someone, they can switch on live translation and it will live translate what you're saying. So if we were doing this call for Tony's clients in Korea, they could turn on live translation. Tony and I would talk in English. They would see Korean transcription captions on that video. The other thing it will do for us is what I was kind of talking about. There's another one here of creating slides inside of your slides. So if the person you have any working for says, can you make me a slide about this? You're like, yep, okay. Ask Gemini, it'll create it, off you go. I'm going to jump forward a couple. What I will do is I'm going to jump over and actually have a look at what these look like. Because as Tony, I'm an ex-educator, it's always much nicer to show people what it looks like rather than just talk about it. So this is what my drive looks like. This is a folder inside my drive. And you'll notice up in the top right, I have a little Gemini Spark up there. So I've had that little spark in there because I have the license for this. Now, here are a couple of suggestions. I could just go summarize this folder and it will look at the folder and summarize it for me. Now, if you've got a year of board reports in there, you go summarize this folder. When did we talk about increasing literacy? When did they talk about new paint for the gym? And when did they talk about reseeding the lawn on the sports field? It'll find all that info for you because it's sitting inside your drive. Now I can analyze the files. I can actually, it's getting a bit meta here. I can ask it what it can do for me. So I can do that. And then what it's going to do is it go, I can do all these things for you. So it sits down in that sidebar there. Okay, so you can ask Gemini to move things, to create folders, to automate workflows. Okay, now this is a really interesting one that Tony touched on before about gems, but that's kind of a whole new workshop. But it is an amazing, amazing ability. Now, inside of my drive, if I'm in here, I might just say, find me documents that talk about behavior. Now, yes, I can do a Google search inside my drive, but it's often quite hit and miss depending on what you call things. Now, Gemini there has just found me a whole lot of things that talk about behavior. So there's there we go. Now, it was actually suggesting what are some of the identified challenges regarding student behavior at Bayside High School. There you go. It'll actually suggest what I might want to look at next. But all of these, if you notice on here, none of these have the word behavior in the title because we're really good at not giving things good titles. So that's Gemini inside of my drive. It's my little assistant that sits inside there. Okay. Now let's jump across to this next one. So here is a little table of GDP data per country, comparing it to the growth and the spending on the military. I don't know where I found this data, but I found it anyway. Now, I use this one purely because it's a whole lot of data that I can share. It's all public data. So I just set up the top there, what's the relationship between columns F and O? And it told me what that was. So that's telling me what it's doing, and it comes back with it. And then I said, can you make me a graph of that data? Here's a graph of the connection between those two. And it also tells me what the correlation is. Now, then I've said, what about the columns F and N? Here's the correlation between those two. And I've also generated a scatter plot to visualize the relationship. So that's me asking natural language questions to a massive pile of data. Now, if I'm looking at a bunch of school data, which we know there's a ton of data sitting inside of schools, I can do exactly that same thing. So I might have a really simple table of data here with a bunch of made up students and a bunch of made up results, and I can do exactly that sort of stuff as well. Okay. So Gemini sits inside my sheets. It stays inside my sheets. That sheet does not go into Gemini. It stays inside that walled garden. Okay. Same behavior when I'm sitting inside my email. So here's Gemini in my sidebar that will go backwards and forwards. You know, what's this email about? It's catching me up with it. Can you find me emails about sharing a slideshow? Sure, here it is. Here's all my sources. So Gemini, when you're using that licensed version, sits inside the sidebar across a whole pile of different apps. If I'm sitting inside my drive and I want to jump into some docs, for instance, let's go back over to my tab. And I just got a blank document. Then what you'll see is Gemini actually pops into my document there. I can create new meeting notes. It'll help me write something. I can generate a document. There are a whole lot of more things I can create inside here. So Gemini will do a whole lot of things for me. You see on the side, it'll give me a summary. It'll find my meeting notes. These are all the things that Gemini inside Docs are going to help me with. So the big difference we have here is that Gemini is sitting inside of all our things. We don't have to add things to Gemini externally, and it becomes our little assistant that sits up the side here. So when we're looking at that, to start to save us a bit of time, you know, what can we do? Now this one is a little bit of an eye check down here. Now, on the left-hand side down here is what you get in the free Gemini. Okay. If we look down the right-hand side is what you get in something called AI Pro for Education. Now, deep research, we talked about at the top, you get double the deep research you can use. Okay. No, you don't. You get vastly more than that. 10 uses per month versus 20 uses per day. Okay, it's very similar at the top here. You can create videos with VO3, which was that hamburger video I made before. Audio overviews, which are the podcasts, which I'll show you quickly before we go. But then we jump into things like stronger models inside of Notebook LM, Gemini inside of Gmail, Gemini inside of Docs, Gemini inside of Slides, Classroom, Vid, Sheets, Meet, and a whole lot of extra things there. So Gemini won't, so Mostyn, it's a great question. So Gemini inside your apps is a paid add-on. So it's an additional service you need to look at. Gemini, when it's outside of your apps, which I'll flick over to now, is if I head down to my plus, I can do an ad inside of the free one, but it's one at a time. If I've got the paid version of it, then it is sitting inside of all these things. Can you turn these on and off for users? Yes, you definitely can. So your admin can turn these off and on for an individual, for a group, all those sorts of things. So this is 100% manageable that way. Now, I was talking before about deep research, and I'm going to show you a real quick one about what that looks like. So I was coming home on the bus. I was listening to a Radio New Zealand article about the knowledge-rich curriculum. Okay. Now, I asked Gemini to go and find what a knowledge-rich curriculum was, examples of countries using it, and examples of pedagogy that support that knowledge-rich curriculum. Now, schools have used it for things like, I want to build this. Can you find me what I need to do? Here is my address. It'll do all the local building things. I'm doing this. I'm putting this on. This is what I need to know. So what it does is it goes out and it does some research for me. It came back with this report. So this is what it is. Here's some introduction. Here's a knowledge-rich curriculum. Here's the core philosophy. Here's the key characteristics. If there is something you want to go and research, deep research will do it for you. So I'm going to scroll through all of this because there's a lot of stuff in here. But when we get to the bottom, this is how many websites it read for me. So what it's doing is it will, so someone says, oh, we're going to build a new composting garden. Can you go and find me a whole lot of information for it? Or we're doing a presentation on blah. Can you go and find me some information for it? Jump into deep research, ask deep research to do it. Okay. Now, deep research will also turn that into an infographic, for instance. So if you were doing something around overcoming adversity in hockey, get deep research to go research it for you, flick it over into an infographic here, and whack that into your school newsletter, for instance, or share it. So deep research is your research assistant. Okay. Now, what I've also done is I have put deep research into Notebook LM. So I got a 20-page research document, dropped it into here. Now, if I have a look at this, so here is, let's pick up, I'm going to pick one I used, a teaching-based one. So here's my big report on the Lord of the Flies book. Okay, I want to know more about it. Or it could be my board report, or it could be my school's strategic goals. And instead of reading all of that, what I can do is I can go, can you create me an audio overview? And what it will do is it will build me a little
all the
podcast.
Adults are gone. No rules, no one watching, just kids trying to survive alone.
Sounds like a lot of movies and books these days, doesn't it?
It really does. You think of things like the Hunger Games.
Okay, and the thing about that is you have two hosts talking about this resource. And that will do it for anything. It will do it for your school website if you want. So I actually got it to make an audio overview about our school website. Now that one there is my audio overview. That one up there is actually a video overview. So this was what it made about the school I was at.
Welcome to another deep dive.
Glad to be here.
Today we're focusing on education, specifically looking at Takapuna Grammar School. Our mission really is to unpack what makes this place tick. You know, its core philosophy, the actual experience it offers students. And we're drawing this directly from
Now, that's a really interesting little tool because anything you give it as a resource, it's going to make a little podcast about. You can actually fine tune the podcast as well. You can say, make me a podcast about our school values or our school motto or our school history. Jump into the three dots, download it as MP3, and then you can use it somewhere. So that's a cool little tool that I really like to talk about. Fantastic for a lot of big data. Put a whole lot of information there, ask it a whole lot of questions. You can't change the accent just yet, Carrie. That's a big question. There are more that are in development that I can't tell you. But anyway, yes, that is the biggest answer. That's the biggest question of Notebook LM at the moment around that podcast piece. But to kind of wrap up, and I'll answer the questions that have come up in the chat. When you're using the free Gemini has a whole lot of tools in it that you can use here. You can create images, you can write, you can do deep research, you can create a video. Here are your tools here, making images, all that sort of cool stuff that we talked about at the beginning. When you're looking at the paid Gemini, then you have the built-in Gemini that sits up here, okay? So the difference between the two are, this is built into everything you do, okay? It's inside of all your apps you're using. It's inside your docs, your sheets, your Gmail. It is your little assistant that lives inside everything. I'm at the point now where I simply click on that little spark and ask it a question. Can you do this? Find me this. Do this for me. Can you help me understand this? Can you make this more simple? Break this down into 15 bullet points for me. If you get a big report in the principal needs to look at, summarize it into 15 bullet points. What are the pros and cons and what do I need to know in a New Zealand school? Grab that, whack it into a doc, share it over. Or even put it in deep research, or even put it into Notebook LM, turn it into a podcast. So all these are built-in features, okay? Right, so there were a couple of questions. Let me just jump back into there, because I know that was a lot of stuff. Now we do have the transcription of this and the recording of this. You can go back over to get an idea of all the stuff we talked about. I'm just going to open this up. What I will do is I will actually stop sharing.
Yeah, I think, Steve, one of them was about students and the other one was about the cost.
Yep, sure. Yeah, so the built-into docs piece you're only going to get if you've got the paid license. So students don't have that; they don't have access to it. So all that built-in stuff you've seen is only available for the people who have the license. Okay, and the license is a year-long license. You can get it for one person, two person, three people. Lots of schools get a couple for their senior leadership and one for their EA or PA, because those are the people that are going to get the most benefit out of this.
Yeah, Steve, I think the other bit about that is that if this is the place you want to start. Again, there are a few checks and balances you need to do around, the security and the distribution group stuff. So you're people like yourselves and principals and DPs, it's a great place to start because they're usually your trusted people that if something doesn't quite go right, then you're not sort of in a pickle.
Yep. Yeah, look, the cost of this is $30 per user per month. It is a lot cheaper than some of the other AIs that are out there. And when I first looked at this, I went, oh, that's quite expensive. But then I looked at it again and I went, well, hang on a minute. I'm actually using it across all these different tools. It is 100% data protected. It lives inside my domain. And now that I've begun using it a lot, if I was back in the classroom, I would 100% pay for it myself. And that's not a sales pitch at all. It is true. The amount I'm using it now, I would definitely pay for it. So it's about $360 a year per user. And again, that's what I'm saying. I would never come in and go, everyone at school should have this, because they shouldn't. Because for some people, it will be a complete waste of money. For other people, it is super useful.
Yeah.
So you can have a chat to the New Era team about that. They can procure those licenses for you. It is a per person cost, per month per person. You can get one license for 1 month. And I think that's about $36. So if you did want to try it for a month, you can do that as well. Okay. The cheapest way to buy it is for a year-long license. And I'm finding most schools I'm working with, they're like, look, for that cost, we'll grab 3, we'll give it a go, we'll give it to a couple of people, we'll evaluate whether or not it's actually useful. Because I can sit here and talk about how I use it for hours. Kind of feels like I have been. I'm sure everyone's like, yeah, it does feel like that, Steve. But if you grab it, you give it a go, see what the benefit is for you, and see about that idea of what is the actual time saving that's in this. And if it's not a time saving, it's not worth it.
Yep.
Because you need to have a reason to use this. And as Tony said, you kind of give it a go and you go, yep, I've tried it for that and that was really useful. Or I tried it for that, it was pointless. So one last little thing we look at here, I'll just show you these last two slides. And this is kind of a example of a day. Okay, so just thinking about an education leader, 5 minutes on your emails, 15 minutes to chuck together an agenda inside of Sheets. You're preparing for a meeting, brainstorm quickly with Gemini, then jump into slides, create a couple of slides with it. You're presenting the work in Meet. You've done your transcription there. Your meeting's all done. Jump into Docs and go, look at this, this, and this, and give me the summary of what we've just done. Now, if you look at those, that's 5, 20, 25, 30, 40 minutes saved per day. A nice little bit of time saving each day. Anything time we can use to grab some time back or to create something that's automated is super, super useful. Okay. That's an example of a teacher one and also for students as well. So we've got lots of these examples that we can use. So I will definitely 100% stop talking here because we have gone 7 minutes over. Apologies for that. Look, if you want to talk more about the licensing, reach out to Tony and the team. They can give you some insights on it. Give it a go. If you haven't played with the free Gemini, go to gemini.google.com in your school account and start using that as well. A lot of your educators will have been to some training around Gemini because I think it's all I've been talking about for the last 8 months because it is super, super exciting. But also for your team out there, grab someone from the leadership team. Say, hey, can you tell me through how to prompt in Gemini? They're like, oh, yeah, certainly. All coming in. Yeah. So I'll stop talking there. Throw it back to Tony.
Awesome, Steve. You're the best, Steve. Thanks so much. Hey, look, thank you everyone for joining here today. I'll pop my email in there if you want to reach out, but the transcriptions are here. Thank you so much again, Steve. I always love doing stuff with you. Love that education background. But hey, look, have a brilliant evening, everyone. I hope you found some value out of it, and just be in touch if you need to.
Thanks, folks. Ka kite anō. Have a fantastic afternoon.
Okay, bye.
All right, let me jump in here. Let me stop that recording. Stop the recording.